Good morning. Welcome to Randy's Corner, and I'm your host, Randy Clark. And as you know, this month we're kind of dedicating the shows to real estate. Well, we can't talk real estate without real estate insurance. So I got my good friend here, Darren Holland, with Alpha Insurance, and we're going to talk a little bit of real estate insurance this morning. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing very well this morning.
Would you like to tell the viewers a little something about Darren?
Okay, sure. Been an insurance agent with Alpha Insurance for 31 years.
Okay.
But prior to that, I was a agribusiness teacher. And so I have been in 2 different offices over my career with Alpha. I began in Clay County and was there 5 years and then moved here in '98. And this is home. I came back home and have been in the insurance business all those 25 years or so here in Sylacauga.
Got a lot of experience.
I've been doing this a while. So,
You've probably
Would you
seen
like
them
to
every.
mention your family?
Sure, married to Jada for 35 years,
Okay.
formerly Jada Morris, and I have one daughter, Dara, who lives in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And so she's married, and that's my family.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right, Darren, I want to talk about 3 subjects this morning. I want to talk about commercial insurance,
Okay.
home insurance, and something that a lot of people don't talk about, but is kind of important, renter's insurance.
Agree with that.
We'll start off with commercial insurance. So, if somebody is thinking about starting a business, what should they know about insurance? Am I on the right commercial part?
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about what commercial insurance is.
Okay.
So, you're looking at, if you buy a building, you need to insure the structure, or if you lease, then you'll need to insure the contents or the personal property or business property for that business. So if you own the building, you insure the dwelling or the structure itself, and then you would insure your desk, your computers, or inventory, whatever it is that you have inside. And then on the liability side, there's premises liability that acts as protection if someone comes to your place of business, if they were to fall and tried to sue you or needed medical attention. And then there's also products completed that's part of that in case you have a product that goes out and something happens and there's liability to protect you in that case. And so those are the basic parts of a commercial policy. Would be the property side, and then there's the liability side. And of course, there are a ton of different endorsements that protect different things that you can add to it. So that's the basic part of it. And then as you need things, we can attach other coverages onto it.
Okay. One more question. Say you're starting a business, you get a commercial. The vehicles that's 2 separate things, right?
That's correct.
The vehicles
yeah.
of
Right.
the commercial business.
Right. There's property insurance or structures and that type of thing and liability, and then there's auto insurance. And there's commercial auto insurance for commercial type vehicles, and we'll insure personal vehicles that are used in business for things like going to a job site or driving to work or sometimes even service trucks that are used. But the liability and the property coverage that protects the vehicle, that is a separate policy.
Okay.
Now there is a coverage on a commercial called hired auto. I don't want to get too deep into that, but there's a little bit of a protection for something there. But yeah, just remember that auto insurance and commercial insurance are going to be 2 separate policies because they do 2 separate things.
Okay, great. Now, let's get into some home insurance. For somebody that's looking, say a first-time buyer, first-time real estate, first time they ever purchased a home, what should they know about getting homeowners insurance policy?
Okay. And let me say this. Insurance is a cost that you always have to factor in, whether you're in business or whether you're purchasing a home. And so being able to factor that in before you purchase so that you know what you're getting into. So it's always okay to call an insurance agent and get a price, and you want to do this before you ever purchase anything. to get business expenses. I recently was rating a business for someone, and we rated it a couple months ago, so they kind of knew what to expect when they opened the doors, and which is going to be soon. So you want to do the same thing with a homeowner. Okay, you want to go ahead and reach out to your agent and get pricing. Now, the question is, what does a homeowner cover, or what does it entail, or what would you need to know about it? In today's world, oftentimes, and I'm going to mention this first before we get into that, because a lot of times people don't really understand kind of what happens when you purchase a home, for instance.
Right.
And it's different if you own your home and you're purchasing a home, okay? And so let's talk about purchasing a home. When you purchase a home, the mortgage companies these days like to have your insurance paid through your mortgage, okay? So in an escrow account. And so what will happen is when you purchase the home, you will initially pay a year's premium at the closing, and then every time you make your payment each month, part of that comes out and goes into an escrow account to pay your insurance.
Right.
And so there's no additional cost to the insured for that. It's just a way to pay it, okay? And as far as we're concerned, it doesn't matter. We're getting paid, either way. So whether you're paying it directly yourself or whether you're going through your mortgage company and paying an escrow account, either way is fine. But that's kind of what you need to know about that. So,
Right.
So let's talk about what would be covered. It's kind of similar to what we talked about with commercial insurance.
Okay.
You're going to have the structure itself that you're going to cover. You're going to have your personal property and your contents. And then you're going to have your liability, okay? And with a home, you also have, there's some other coverages that are part of it, something called loss of use coverage is part of your home. And so what that does, if your house is damaged, let's say you had a kitchen fire, okay? And fire would smoke it up, they come in, there's water damage, you can't live in that environment. That's dangerous for you to live there. So you're not gonna be able to stay in your house. You've lost the use of your house. And so while this is being repaired, you have to stay somewhere.
Right.
And that may be a hotel. If it's a total loss where the house burnt down and we're building it back, you may have to rent for 6 or 8 months or a year because,
Right.
to get the house built back. Those extra expenses are part of the package policy that you get with the homeowner to pay for the loss of use of your house. And then there's outbuilding coverage that if you decide that you want to go to a place and buy a storage structure and you have it moved there and put there, then there's some automatic coverage for that. You don't necessarily have to call your insurance agent and tell him you got it. And that was attached to homeowners because people would go and buy or build a building and never tell their insurance company, and then something would happen to it. And so insurance companies decided, hey, let's just make some automatic coverage for that. Now it's a limited amount of coverage, so you may need to call your insurance agent and make sure you have enough if you have that. So the parts are the dwelling, the outbuildings, the personal property, loss of use, okay? And that all deals with the property side. And then there's liability. Right. And so liability and medical. So liability, of course, protects you if someone comes to your property and they fall, and you have premises protection if your dog bites somebody or something happens on your property that would make you liable, possibly. And so there's protection there to pay for an attorney and for the insurance company to pay those expenses if you are negligent or liable.
Okay.
And then there's medical coverage if someone goes and has to get treated at the hospital. There's some medical coverage on a homeowner for that as well.
Right.
And then there's endorsements, just like I mentioned with the commercial, that you can add for a lot of different things. You can increase limits for guns and jewelry, and you can add, get more computer coverage. We have coverages now that are attached to the homeowner that cover anything with energy that's running through it at your home. It's called a home systems protection endorsement that would pay if your heat and air unit goes out for mechanical failure. And that's always been covered for electrical, like lightning strikes it, or fire, or I've even had a tree fall on one of my customers' units and crush it.
Right.
Those have always been covered as perils on the homeowner policy.
Okay.
But if it just tears up for mechanical failure, that wasn't covered previously. Now it is. It's an endorsement we can add to help out in the case of that happening. So,
Okay.
and there's a lot of other things that you can add for that, to it. And you just need to get with your agent and see what's necessary because everybody's situation is different.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So, couple things I want to talk about. Flood insurance. Is flood insurance covered for rains or, I know it's a total different ball game down on the beach, right?
Yeah.
But as in, what I'm getting at is flood insurance covered if rain messes up your property? Say your yard floods and messes up your basement. Could you go into that and I know you can get a separate flood insurance,
Yeah.
right?
Well, first off, flood insurance is excluded on a homeowner policy. It's not covered for flooding.
So it's separate.
It is a separate policy. You have to purchase separate. And let's talk about what flood is, okay? Flood is anything that really comes from the ground. If your home is damaged, a tree limb comes through your roof, hole, gets put in your roof, and the water's pouring in, it's a terrible storm, and you get water damage inside your home from that. That came from the sky. That's not flood, okay? That's something that would be a covered peril on a homeowner policy.
Okay.
If you have water escape somewhere in your house, a pipe burst or a bathtub overflow or a washing machine overflow, ice maker, which is notorious for failing and getting water all over your kitchen. These things are covered on a homeowner policy. They're perils that are part of a homeowner policy. Flood is not. Flood is and it comes from the ground. So when it hits the ground and comes in your house, then homeowners are not, that's an exclusion on companies. So there is a separate flood, and there's a couple of ways to get it. There's a National Flood Insurance Program, which is the federal government's program that you could purchase. And there's also now private flood, which means private companies are offering flood insurance, but it is a separate policy.
Okay.
And so people say, well, I'm not in a flood zone, I don't need flood insurance. If you are in a flood zone, you're at the beach, you're at the lake, you're in a flood zone, you absolutely need flood insurance because if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company is going to require it.
Right.
Okay, but still, you're close. You're within an area that has flooded. All right, but and I tell this, tongue in cheek a little bit, but we're all in a flood zone because the whole world flooded once. So the things that's dangerous, and I have seen happen, are flash floods.
Right.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Customer lives a little bit up on a hill. You had to go up a hill into a cul-de-sac, okay? And their house sat here, and they had a basement garage. And so the concrete driveway goes down and goes under the garage. And so down the road from the house, a drain stopped up, okay?
Right.
It's raining. The water backed up the hill enough, it was that bad of a rain, that then it tipped over into their driveway, went straight down that concrete driveway, right into their basement, and did thousands of dollars worth of damage. Fact is, their cars were down there. It flooded their cars, and their auto coverage covers flood.
Right.
Auto insurance, if that happens, it's part of the auto policy.
Right.
We paid for the autos, but the actual basement that was damaged from that was excluded on the homeowner. There was no flood policy. They have one now.
Right.
Okay? They realize the need for it.
Right.
That's flash flooding. So,
And you never know when that's going to happen.
yeah, I've seen several times where that's happened.
Yes.
Right.
We've had
So-
it around here several times.
And if you're not in a flood zone, it's substantially cheaper to
Right.
get flood insurance. But flood insurance is something that you'll have to have if you're in a flood zone and you have a mortgage, and but it's something you can still purchase if you choose to.
Okay. Now, one more thing I want to talk about. This was all over the news out in California. I know it might not affect us, but it talked about a lot of the fire insurance got canceled. Could you explain kind of the way that went down?
I don't know details about it exactly. I think that
Well, what I'm
often-
referring to is that how it might affect us.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this, sometimes insurance companies are made to be the bad guys, and sometimes the whole story's not really, you know, put out there. Insurance companies have to make a profit, or they're not going to stay in business. They're not going to be able to pay your claim.
Sure.
And so, and insurance premiums are driven by the fact that an insurance company they have to make a little bit more than they pay out, you know, enough to make a profit, to be able to put so much in reserves and that kind of thing. So I think that my understanding is some of the insurance companies out there went to the state and asked for rate increases because they needed them and they weren't giving them. And so in that case, an insurance company has a choice. Do we still try to do business in this environment? Same thing happens sometimes in Florida. Insurance companies realize we can't be profitable. We can't get the rates we need here. They may stop doing business there. And so that's the choice of the insurance company. And so I think that's what's happening. And if they pull out of that state and stop doing business there and you have insurance with them, well, guess what? You're going to get non-renewed. You're not going to get offered renewal because they're no longer doing business there. And I think that's often what happens. Now, does it affect us? Okay. Maybe. I mean, you know, an insurance company that does business everywhere, you know, they're looking at their bottom line overall. And so, you know, it could possibly impact, it won't impact us. We're not in California, you know.
Right.
So, but it could impact some people who could be. And when I say that, the insurance company looks at what they've paid out in claims versus what they're bringing in premium. They've made a promise for the future and they need to bring in enough money to make sure they can pay the future claims. Then they may need to increase rates. And that's what's been happening a lot in the last 5 years or so, is that everything has gone up and insurance companies are and having to look at their rating structure, and sometimes they've been going up, and they have been going up because for them to be able to stay profitable.
I got you. Okay, we got about a minute or two left.
Okay.
Let's brush a minute on how important renter's insurance is. It don't get talked about a lot, but it's really important, isn't it?
It is, because if you rent a place and something is damaged, your stuff is not going to be covered. Whether you're renting a house or you're renting an apartment, whatever it is. And a personal story, years ago, before I knew anything about insurance really, right out of college, living with a friend of mine, we went fishing one weekend, came back, somebody broke in, stole our guns and TVs and different things, and neither one of us had renter's insurance, okay? And so that would have been a lot different experience if we had of, okay? So I've seen apartments get flooded from above, come down and ruin stuff. I've seen fires happen. I've seen, you know, homes burned down where somebody lost everything they had. And so if you're not covering your contents, even if someone else, the person that owns the house you're renting, they may have insurance on the house, your stuff's not covered in it. So you need to have renter's insurance for, number one, protect your stuff, and number two, for liability. In case you invite somebody over and they fall and then they decide to go get an attorney and sue you, you know, then you need protection for that, okay? So and renter's insurance is very reasonable, so there's no, and you get discounts for bundling, so sometimes I can provide renter's insurance at a very low cost to somebody because of the discount they'll get on their auto by bundling. So
I got you.
Absolutely, renter's insurance is very important to have.
Okay. Thank you, Darren, for coming in this morning. Real useful information. We need that.
Good.
And for all your insurance needs, go see Mr. Darren Holland at Alpha Insurance. And stay tuned for more Daybreak. We'll see you next week.